Hey everybody, this is Sam. Today we're going to be going over the new good faith. This is a lot of changes that we're going to have to go over, so I just wanted to explain exactly what we're going to be going over in these slides that you're going to see. The first thing that's going to be important is what is different for the borrowers. The other thing is what are these new boxes that are on the good faith that we didn't have on the old good faith. The most important thing, of course, is how we're going to fill it in and how is it different from the old good faith. Just remember, too, that I'm not here to discuss whether the new good faith is good or bad. We're just here to show you how to fill it in, stay in compliance, learn your tolerances, and how to sell this to the customers. Here we're going to show you just what the pages look like. As you can tell now, it's not one legal size page, but it's 3 letter size pages, and they each have different information that you're going to have to fill some data in, and plus it gives the customer an idea of what we're doing with this new good faith. We're going to go over all the differences that are on the forms. One of the biggest ones you're going to see is the difference in the way it displays the customer's information. Right here on the old good faith, it shows them what their payment is, what the hazard, their taxes, homeowners association dues. It shows them how much they need to bring to close, what their closing costs are, what the reserves, prepaid items. As you can see on the summary page for the GFE 2010, it only shows them essentially what their estimated settlement charges are. There's no breakdown of the fees. This is the largest difference that we're going to see on the good faith. What HUD has said, at least from what they have told us, is that they thought the old good faith was confusing to the customer, and the new good faith is essentially, this is it. This is how much your loan is costing, and this is what you have to pay to get your loan done. So no more looking at the bottom of the good faith and seeing what it's costing and what their payments are going to be. All that information still will be on page 4 of the 1003. And also, you still are going to have to enter the data into the old good faith because this is where your APR is determined, your closing costs, how much cash. So we're still going to use that old form. And apparently in 2010, Point intends to name it something different, like loan information summary or something like that. But for now, we'll still use the form to enter the data, but we're not going to print it out anymore. Page 1 of the new good faith estimate is more of a summary for the borrower to look at. It has some dates about when their lock expiration is good through, how long the settlement charges are for, and there's also information if, for instance, if they have a balloon mortgage, if their rate could rise because they're in an ARM, or if they're in a neg-am loan, or if that's a prepayment penalty. It also has a summary of their total settlement charges, which get explained on page 2. Here we're going to go over the important dates section of page 1 of the new good faith. The first one is the interest rate for the good faith, when it's available through. If you have locked the loan, you would obviously put the lock expiration date on here. If you have not locked the loan yet, to guarantee that you don't fall out of compliance, you should put the date and the time when you looked up the rate so the customer gets an accurate quote. Number 2 is when the settlement charges are good through. Again, if it's a purchase, you should put when the contract is ended, or if you've locked the loan, it would again fall on the time and date of when your lock expires. Number 3 is, after you lock your interest rate, it tells you how long you must go to settlement. So for instance, if you've locked it for 15 days, you would put 15 days in there. If you intend to lock it on a 40-day lock, you would put 40 days in there. Then the last one is number 4. It says you must lock the interest rate for at least so many days before settlement. Well, a purchase you might have a couple days, you could do 7. But what you need to count into here is to make sure that you give yourself enough time, A, to get to closing. Some lenders, as you know, can take a couple days to get to closing. And then on a refi, you're going to have your rescission time. So just make sure that you notify the customer of this information so they know when they need to lock this loan. All this data is entered only on the new Good Faith 2010 form, and it's right at the top. This part of page 1 of the new good faith is the summary of the loan. Really shouldn't be too much information you have to add into here, since it has the loan amount, the loan term, interest rate, and what their P&I payment is. Of course, all that is entered either on the borrower summary page or on page 2 and page 1 of the 1003. The other parts have to do with, can your interest rate rise? Even if you're making your payments on time, can your loan balance rise? If you make your payments on time, can your monthly amount owed for P&I and MI rise? Does your loan have a prepayment penalty? Does your loan have a balloon payment? These, again, are covered on another form, which is your truth in lending. If you filled out your truth in lending correctly, the data will carry over onto this page of the good faith. The other part that you need to know on here is that if there is a prepayment penalty, you're going to have to put the exact amount of the prepayment penalty. If there is a balloon payment, you're going to have to put the exact amount in. If you have not calculated your till, it does not carry over. So just make sure once you enter any sort of data for an ARM or a prepayment or a balloon that you hit the calculate button on your truth in lending. On these next two sections of page 1, you're going to tell the customer here whether or not they're escrowing. It does not show them their escrow payments essentially, but it just tells them, yes, I am escrowing, or no, you're not escrowing. The funniest thing that it shows is it says, yes, you have an escrow account. It may or may not cover all of these charges. Ask us. So what that means is you're going to get questions from the customers. But basically what you should tell them, of course, is when they do escrow, if the payments change, if their taxes go up, their insurance goes up, the payments are going to be a little higher per month. The other thing here now it shows in the next section is the summary of your settlement charges. Your adjusted origination charges, see page 2, your charges for all other settlement services, and then it's the total settlement charges. Those will be broken down on page 2, so you can go over those with the customer. Now we're on to page 2. This is where you're going to see most of the changes and the differences where you're going to have to think different on how you price a loan and how you make sure, A, that you get paid, and B, that you represent the proper things to the customer. This is box 1 of the good faith, page 2, your origination charge. Origination charge is not anymore just the origination that you charge the customer. This is different fees that are in your 800 section that can go to anybody. It can go to the lender. It can even go to a third party like a processor. What they want to show now is what is the loan essentially costing them. This is what essentially you are charging them, the lender's charging them, your processing service is charging them in order to get this loan done. There are certain fees in the 800 section that are not in here. We'll discuss those in later slides. But the most important thing to remember on this is there is no tolerance here. Zero tolerance. Once you've discussed this with the customer and showed them an origination charge, it cannot change. Zero tolerance. Just remember that. Now, of course, there are certain circumstances. We're not going to fall into those too much. It has to do with acts of God and war and things where the customer may make a change, but most of the time they don't. That has to do more with selecting a new property. Remember, though, there is no tolerance, especially once you've locked the loan. That's it. You cannot change this. And if there is some sort of change that's covered under the change, you have to keep track of that for 3 years. So make sure you document it if there is some sort of change. You don't want to ever change this box, again, unless something happens, a hurricane, an earthquake, a forest fire. Those are considered acts of God.